Hello, everybody. And I just totally whacked my mic with my hand there. It is me, Candace from Tubby and Cruz, here with another author event. I am super excited, as always, to talk with Marina Lostetter today, who is the author of The Helm of Midnight, which is the book that we're talking about today. Super excited to talk about this book. I'm like 2/3 of the way through. And this book is so cool. I think y'all will like it a whole lot. So Marina is originally from Oregon. She now resides in Arkansas with her spouse, Alex. In her spare time, she enjoys globetrotting, board games, which of course is close to my heart, and all things art related. Her original short fiction has appeared in venues such as Lightspeed, Uncanny, and Shimmer Magazine. Her debut novel, Numenon, I think is how you pronounce it, and its sequels, Numenon Infinity and Numenon Ultra, are currently available. Those are science fiction books. The Helm of Midnight is her first fantasy novel, and she has also written tie-in materials for Star Citizen and the Aliens franchise, which is super cool. So welcome, Marina. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me.
And so can we start off by telling us a couple of things about yourself, like fun facts that aren't in your bio that you think would be cool for folks to know?
Sure. I have over 100 aloe plants that I started with 4. One of them my mom gave me off of a plant that her great or great grandmother started with. And then it's passed down the plant, and I almost killed that one.
Oh no.
And I was like, no, my whole life I've thought I have a, terrible, I do not have a green thumb. But then she showed me exactly how to care for it. And now I have a ton of them that have mostly come from the 4 original plants.
That's awesome.
So I found one thing I can keep alive in the plant world. I also have 2 cats. They are named Starbuck and Boomer, after the fighter pilots in Battlestar Galactica.
Awesome.
Let's see. What else? And the bio also already mentioned globetrotting. I also really like video games besides the board games. So I play a lot of RPG type video games.
Awesome. What's your favorite video game?
Well, I've currently been hardcore stuck in the Witcher verse. So right now I'm playing Witcher 2, and I just played Witcher 1. And before that I played through Witcher 3 twice. So awesome. I've been very Witcher focused.
I get super relaxed playing Animal Crossing. Really into that.
Nice.
love video games as well. I also I don't know if you played video games growing up, but I played Sega back in the 90s, and Rock and Roll Racing was one of my favorite games. And I just found out that Blizzard re-released it in a Blizzard pack. Nice. So I have been playing a lot of Rock and Roll Racing as well. So tell our viewers, introduce them to The Helm of Midnight. Tell them what the book is about a little bit. And then what was your inspiration to write it? I'm really curious about this because it's such a cool world.
Okay, so The Helm of Midnight, I'd like to pitch it as Hannibal meets Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. So it has serial killer elements and then some very nice structured magic elements that also have, are very integral in the world building. So basically we start off the book, very first chapter, there's a heist where a death mask that's imbued with the echo of the serial killer has been stolen. And then he begins to kill again from beyond the grave.
He sure does.
He does.
And there's another cool thing that is stolen, which is a despair stone. So I want to start off by talking about your magic system, which is really cool because in this book, it's religion. It's based on religion. There are 5 gods in this world. Knowledge, emotion, time, nature, and the unknown. And emotion, the god allows enchanters to imbue certain gems with emotions that you can then sort of use for different things. So people have like joy stones that they can use if they're sad to make them happier, or like the regulators, who are essentially sort of the cops of this world.
They're like the white collar FBI agents. Yeah.
Yeah.
In charge of the
like
super
the
expensive
X-Files
art
agents.
type. Yeah.
That's how I view them. I like Scully
That's
and
good.
Mulder.
Yeah. Very much so.
And they use it in their armor to give them courage and resolve so that they can do their job better. So I just thought this was so cool. And one of the things that is stolen in the heist is a despair stone, which you can give to people to essentially cause them to kill themselves.
Yeah, this one so there's also like percentages that you can put. It's sort of crunchy magic in terms of like it's hardish magic. So yes, the despair stone that is stolen, it not only does it have despair in it, it has more despair in it than you could ever possibly legally enchant a stone with. So it pushes you right over to, right off the edge if you ever come in contact with this particular despair stone.
Yeah, it's super bad. And that being stolen along with the serial killer mask is like real bad. Yes. You're like, oh my gosh, like there are bad things are going to happen with
bad things.
So tell us about this magic system of enchantment. There are also death masks that people enchant, and it gives the person who then wears the death mask you imbue the mask with the knowledge of the dead person when you enchant it, and then other people can wear it and have that knowledge, which is also really cool. On top of like the way the emotion stones work, and there's all kinds of other things. So tell us about this magic system and how you came about it, and like how you keep track of all of it, because it's so cool and there's so much going on.
So the inception of this whole story started way back in January 2011, I think it was. I had just come home from my honeymoon. And so my honeymoon was in Costa Rica, and there's a tribe of people there who are well known for their incredible craftsmanship, especially doing masks. So they're Baruca masks. And we brought home 2. And I was trying to write a short story, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to cast about my living room for elements to put in the short story. And I looked at the masks and I was like, these masks are incredibly expressive. They have so much personality. What if there was literally a personality in this mask? So then kind of like Time in a Bottle, music came about, and I was like, okay, let's do time magic to go along with the mask magic. And those 2 things are in the original short story. So when I wanted to expand it, I was like, all right, I need more magic things. Let's throw in some more stuff. And 5 feels like a good number. So we'll just pick 5, right? And then I kind of worked backwards up to the gods. So it's like I had my 2 magics, which I expanded into the 5. And then I was like, okay, I need to assign, an element, because basically the masks were already wood. So, okay, everything that has to do with knowledge magic is in wood. And then the time was in glass. So I was like, okay, sand and glass is all time. So then I put emotion in gemstones. And then I put basically kind of like transformative evolutionary nature magic in metal. And then, of course, I'm not going to talk about the other one because the other one's unknown. There's the 5th, which is an unknown element to go with the unknown god. And then from there, I assigned gods to them and kind of created the backstory. So I often kind of work backwards in building my world.
That's really cool. And then, yes, let's talk about time magic a little bit, because time in this book is like a huge deal. One, it is the currency of the world, which is super cool. I've not seen this used before, where time is what they exchange for things. So they have like little coins that are like 5 seconds of time that they can exchange. They have vials of time that can be more time, and they exchange time for things. And there's a time tax. When you're like an infant, the state comes and takes 5 years of your life away, and they keep some of it, and they give some of it to your parents. And so the way time works, and so essentially people don't live super long in this world. So if you're like 70 in this world, that's like a big deal. And like also people are like, you're super rich, and like they don't like the old people in this world. So where did the time magic stuff come from? Was that just like an idea that popped in as well?
Well, like I said, I think it must have had something to do with Time in a Bottle. And then there is actually a movie, and my husband like picked at me the other day because I was like, didn't I see that trailer for In Time, which is another like time is currency movie? It was a Justin Timberlake movie. Can't say I was a big fan of the movie, but like a trailer came on around the same time. And I was like, is that how I came up with it? And my husband was like, no, you were really mad that they stole your idea. So I'm not quite sure. I don't have a really solid memory of exactly how that one came about, but I'm sure it had something to do with if I could save time in a bottle. I'm sure the song was involved somehow. And so I was like, all right, let's make time in a bottle. And then, of course, you have the saying time is money. So you just kind of like
that's true.
Combine those things and look, then I just made it literal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I never even thought about that. That there's a saying that time is money, and like in this time is literal money.
It is literal money.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's all based on this religion, as you said, like you started with that, you built up to the gods. And so people in this world, worship these 5 gods. And another cool thing that I thought was that time and nature are twins as far as the gods go. And in their politics in this world, which is another thing I want to talk about in your world building, in politics, the only way you can move up in the political realm is by being a twin. And I think that's really interesting as well. So why twins?
I just thought it would be another aspect of, so already if you have bloodline nobility, right, it's already like narrowing your options for who can lead you. So it's like, okay, what if they had some other really strict way to narrow that even further? So I picked twins. And it's only for the city-state of Lostetter. So there's 5 city-states in this valley. So I guess if we go out, the whole book takes place in one valley. And this valley is the only place that humans can live on the entire planet. Everything else outside of it is, yes, there's a map.
Yes, there's a map. I'm going to see if I can show folks this map, if you can see it. This is the
valley. This is Arkansas Valley. And the thrust of the story takes place in Lostetter, which is one of the city-states. Yep, up there. Not quite totally north, but in the, second to the top there. So in Lostetter, that's where they have the twin system. And in each city-state, a different god is their patron god. So it is involved in a different way that their politics work.
Yeah, and it's different in each place, which is pretty cool as well, because each place, as it would, if it were real, has its own like culture, and the people sort of dress differently and they worship different gods, and and I just think that the world building there is really cool, and how I think it's Lostetter, where the nobles sort of live up in the mountains. They're like literally higher than everybody else.
The palace is up on
the houses, like sort of like up on a hill, and that's where they go. Like even the mid-level sort of nobles go up there to worship to the like church essentially. And then there's the dregs, which is like the sewers below the city, which is where like the poorest of the poor live. So there's also, within this class hierarchy, there's like also literal height as far as like where you live is right. How rich you are, which is pretty cool. I also wanted to talk a little bit about your like world building process. Like, do you have a Bible where you keep track of like all the different places and cultures and everything?
I so should. No one should ever model the way they work off of the way I work, because it's mostly just in my brain. I have a few notes in some notebooks scattered about. I have some files here and there that are like Arkansas magic system or like, and that's just Word docs. Like 99% of what I do is just in Word. And it's very disorganized. I should totally have a Bible, but I am not one of those people. I am generally a more disorganized writer.
I'm very impressed though. Just to keep track of all of that without like some sort of reference guide can't be easy. And so do you story structure? That's the other thing I want to talk about, because this is a fantasy novel for sure, as we talked about the magic system and the world and all of that. But it's also like a mystery thriller. Because there is this mystery of there's this heist at the beginning, and the book follows the regulator who is trying, or one of the points of view is the regulator who is trying to figure out who did this. And so there's this mystery element. And I always say that mysteries are not about who done it, but about why they done it. Because, you know, sometimes the reveal of who done it is great, but in this book, for sure, you're like, why? Why does this person want a serial killer mask? Why do they want this like despair stone that's like on steroids? You know, like what are they planning to do with this and why do they want it? And so I want to talk about that structure a little bit as well. And you don't have a world building Bible, so I assume you also didn't have a murder board where you were like keeping track, but maybe you did.
I did really early on. I did. And then later that just all went out the window. I also like I draft a lot. So I usually have, if I don't have at least 2 drafts, something is wrong. It's not going anywhere. But I think I must have had like 4 or 5 drafts of this one at this point. Just moving things around. And yeah, that was a lot of literally writing down on a piece of paper each time I did it, like where things go and that kind of thing to try to weave it together. I think also it helped me being so disorganized that my just philosophy for reveals and things like that were very, I'm only going to show the character so much. So therefore I'm only showing the reader so much. Like I'm not trying to hide anything from the reader. They're just learning it at the same pace that the characters are. So that way it didn't feel like, oh no, what do I do now? They know too much or something like that. Because it was just, they're all discovering everything that's happening at the same time as the reader is. So hopefully nobody feels like, oh no, you should have told me that.
Yeah.
With the mystery.
And how did you figure out, like, you know, of course there are clues, and there are sort of like red herrings and things like that, which all you have to have when you write any kind of a mystery story. So did you sort of like save the cat? I don't know if you know what that is, but like plot out the beats like of the book and then go back and figure out, okay, here's where I'm going to drop clues, or did that kind of just come out organically?
Nope, that just came out organically. I'm a very intuitive sort of writer, like, which is probably why I have to do so many drafts, right? I'm like, what's going on here? And then I have to go back and like, I broke it there. So I got to go back and fix that. And so it's very much like, I don't know, if I was to compare it to something else, probably like, you know, sculpting with clay, where you're like, oh, I'll shape it here, and then I'll shape it there, and then I'll shape it here, and then, you know, that's probably closest comparison to my process.
That's awesome. I'm super impressed by anyone who can sort of pants that, just because I'm a writer. I mean, I don't have anything published or anything, but I do like to write, of course, like book people normally do. And I am such a planner just in all aspects of my life that it's like, you know, if I'm going to write something, like I need everything outlined to a T. And so
yeah, I still consider myself a plotter because I know what the ending is going to be. Usually that's the first thing I know about a story is the end. And then I kind of like, I have a document that is my outline, which is just kind of like a train of thought of ideas. And it's often very contradictory, but I know what I'm doing out of it, right? Anybody else looking at my notes trying to like make a story out of my notes would be like, what the heck is she doing? But I know what I'm thinking, right, when I'm doing this. So I do have a document that's my outline, which is usually like 5-ish pages of just train of thought ideas that are like, and this is what happened, and then this could happen, and maybe this happened. So I guess that's sort of that is my I'm finding the structure there, but again, that's like the initial lump of clay, and then I got to shape it out of that.
Yeah, and that totally counts as like a pre-writing or whatever you want to call
it.
Yeah, like, here's how this is gonna go. I'm also curious. So in this book, there are 3 main points of view. And lots of side characters as well that we see. And you do your side characters really well also, which is always very cool to see. You know, all of these characters have personalities and they have their own lives, and you see like bits and pieces of that. And so I am also curious if you were like making a movie, like this would be such a cool movie or TV show. So like if you were making that, who would you cast as your main characters?
Oh, that is fun. So people ask me this kind of thing all the time, and I'm really bad at answering it because so one of the things is I don't really see my characters' faces very well. Like I am very much a verb oriented author. So I see how they move and how they, you know, stuff like that. So now I'm trying to remember. I did answer this somewhere else, and I was like, what did I say there? I don't remember now. I think I cast Henry Cavill as my serial killer, just because it would be fun to see him play a serial killer.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who did I pick for the other people?
The serial killer is very good looking in this book too. Like, you know, just like the descriptions of him.
I made the terrible person hot. Why did I do that? The actress from... Oh, now I'm going to not remember her name. Canary in the Birds of Prey movie.
You know, I didn't see that.
I think I cast her as Corona in my... And again, now I don't remember actors' names.
Is that Journey Smollett?
Oh, maybe.
Because Margot Robbie was Harley Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
I think Journey Smollett was Canary. And I could see her being Corona for sure. She was also on.
Yeah,
I was about to say she was in a bunch of other stuff too that I've seen her in, but I can't think of anything at the moment. And what about Melanie?
Melanie needs somebody who's very earnest, and I keep thinking of actresses who are too old when I try to cast her. But there was
very like Reese Witherspoon, but Reese Witherspoon is probably
way too old. Yeah. Not that
Reese Witherspoon was young, right?
Like 20.
Yeah.
So there is actually there is a sci-fi show that I think has been canceled now that was on Netflix called Away. Okay. And there was a lesbian subplot with 2 Chinese actresses, and the one that wasn't the main astronaut, I thought would make a wonderful Melanie, but she was probably also too old for the role.
Yeah, Melanie's super, super young.
She's like 20. So yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, there are 3 points of view of this book, and so I want to talk about your characters too, of course, for a minute. Krona is our main character here. Well, one of them. There's, like I said, there are 3. But Krona is like sort of the one who has the most, or it seems like has the most going on. And she's the regulator who is trying to solve this mystery. And then we have Melanie, who is very mysterious in this book. You kind of don't really know what Melanie's deal is, but she still has her own point of view. And I thought that was so interesting, and still do, that like Melanie has her own point of view and you're following Melanie's story, but you have no idea what her deal is. Like, even when you're like reading,
like what, how is she related? Yeah.
Well, and like, you know, sort of how she plays into the main story, but just don't know what her deal is, you know, like, and then the third point of view is the serial killer, which is really cool. And because you don't think you're going to get that serial killer's point of view, and then you do. And then it's like, oh, so I thought it was really cool too, how you make, like, the serial killer is very complicated in this book. Like, he doesn't just start killing people just because. And so I thought that was really cool too. Like, you gave him a reason to do it. And, you know, all of these characters are doing their sort of own thing and have their reasons for doing what they're doing. So I'm just really curious about your character building process and like who came first and, you know, kind of how it all played together in your head.
Melanie came first because she was actually in the original short story.
Okay.
So her first few chapters that are related to her incident in a different mask, that's not the serial killer mask, those were the original short story chapters that were expanded. So then after her came Corona. And then the last point of view that I ended up doing was Carbon's point of view. And that was because after, I think I even gave a whole draft to my agent, and he was like, this needs something else. What else does it need? I was like, the killer? Okay, let's do the killer. So as I build a character, I don't really build them. I kind of, again, a lot of my writing is intuitive. So like, even if I'm like, they're going to be like this, and I'm going to write them like this, and this is going to be their motivation. If I start out with that, that's not necessarily anywhere near where I end. So I like to say that I kind of get to know them as I write a draft, and I don't really know them until I get to the end of a first draft. And then I'm like, oh, I see subconsciously what I did there, right? And then I have to go back and like do it on purpose. So that's usually how I build, is it just kind of like, I start out thinking about, like, my plot is the first thing that comes to me in terms of like when I'm doing my train of thought plotting. It's just like, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And then I have to think about what kind of people are most likely to relate to that plot and be involved in it. So often the first thing I know about somebody is their job or something like that, because I'm like, all right, again, like, you know, oh, there's a serial killer who's there needs to be a detective, right? Essentially. So, which is more or less Corona. So I kind of build that way. And then I have to do levels of like, all right, that's their like overarching plot involvement. What's their personal involvement in this? Then I have to like figure that part out and kind of build them from there. And then their actual mannerisms and how they talk and that kind of thing, that's just like another intuitive bit that just comes out in the draft. A lot of my writing is just like doing it absolutely not on purpose the first time and making it look like I did it by the end.
Awesome. Do you do the same thing for your secondary characters, or do they also just sort of come out when you write?
Depends on how involved they are. Like Tibbet, as a secondary character, he's pretty involved. So he was kind of the same. Very early drafts of him, a lot of people are like, I don't like this guy. He's kind of a jerk. I was like, well, I don't want to go for jerk. I was kind of going for my like, roguish, fun guy who's way too, he's very fancy and flippant and, he's the jokester kind of guy. So I was like, I don't want to make him an asshole. So I had to go back and I had to fix him. He was all wrong. So it depends, I think, on the level of involvement they have in the story, how many different times I have to go back and tweak them.
Yeah. And I could totally see that, like how people may not have liked him at the beginning. Like I could see a draft where he's just a total, like, he's sort of endearing in this one.
That's what I was trying to make him like the endearing cad kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely what he is now.
Okay, good.
But it's like, I could totally see how like in previous drafts, he may not have been like,
he may have not been so lovable. Yeah.
I love your nerdy t-shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
Marina, for those of you who can't see, he's wearing a Batman shirt. I'm wearing Hocus Pocus.
Oh, very nice.
5 goals. My 1990s childhood showing.
I watched that for just the first time, like
really?
2 Halloweens ago. I was like, somehow it was like a massive gap in my childhood. I should have been like just in the Hocus Pocus generation. I wasn't, so I watched it, and then it was fun. I think so. And there were some things that caught me off guard. I feel like I shouldn't say spoilers, but it's Hocus Pocus, so
yeah.
But anyway, the kids all die in not all the kids, but the cat dies, and I was like, oh crud, I didn't see that coming. Really, the happy ending is the cat dies. Okay.
Correct. The happy ending is that
the happy ending is that they're dead.
That's
okay.
Good. For the children. Good. But no, yeah, it's intense. Like at the beginning when the witches like suck all the life out of that little girl.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, like this is a kid's movie. It's a lot. But I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah. Super fun. Okay, so back to your book. So let's talk about the past year. Clearly this book was written before that because it's now published. Yes. But just generally, how has the past year affected, or has it affected your writing and your process?
So it's very strange because it hasn't actually affected my physical day-to-day life that much, because being a full-time writer, I basically am and I work from home. This is my home office. So I just sit here and I write all day. That's basically what I still do, right? So trying to get groceries is the main issue. And then we used to go out to eat a lot, and we don't do that, obviously. So like day to day, that's pretty much the only impact it had. But I was really stressed out about the virus. So I had some hard push times where I was just like, I kind of developed anxiety, like this kind of thing. Yeah. So it was like, all of that was very new and very hard, but it was weird because it wasn't actually directly affecting my day-to-day life. So it was kind of a weird balance of more difficult, but very much the same.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think. Yeah. I just always wonder, like, as a creative person, just like the things that have been happening in the world generally with the virus and everything like that takes a toll on your mind. And as a creative person, regardless of whether it affects your like day to day, I would think that it would have some sort of effect probably on your creativity.
It definitely did.
Because
I spent some time doing some just like for me writing that the world will never see. Because I was just like, so I did have to write a book through that. So I have another book actually that is coming out this year that I did write last year.
Oh, wow.
And that's Activation Degradation. Right? Yeah. So the Activation Degradation is a pandemic book. So that one I was at times I was like, okay, I got to do some of me writing and then I got to do work on this. And it was like it felt like a book that should have been really straightforward and easy, but sometimes was just, I love that book. It's hopefully a really fun book, but yes, I was very stressed out while I was writing a lot of it.
And when does that book come out?
That comes out in September. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought it was September. So yes, look out for that one as well. If y'all have any questions in the audience, which we have a couple already, but anybody who has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we will get to those in just a minute. So definitely feel free to drop them in there. I'm also going to say to please buy this book. It's a good book and you definitely want to read it, and you can do that on our website at tubbyandcoos.com. There's a big place order button, and then you can just click on Helm of Midnight. It's very easy. Again, this is the book IRL that I have right here, and then I also have this is the cover to give you a little bit closer look at it. And this is a modified regulator uniform. So if y'all are wondering, we've been talking about the regulators, and the cover of this book is what the uniform looks like. So just to give you a little bit of a taste as well. So please buy this book. And Marina, are you willing to do a short sort of like lightning round, quick questions?
Sure.
Okay. So the first one, who are your top 3 favorite authors?
Oh, top 3 favorite. This is when somebody asked me a direct question and I'm like, I've never read a book in my life. Let's say Victoria Schwab and J.R.R. Tolkien and name somebody else.
Top 2 is fine if you can't think of a third one. Top 2 is
hold on, there's gonna be another one I can come up with. I don't know. Let me say I'll say my friend Andrew Stewart, who blurred my book.
Good choices. I love Victoria Schwab also. What was your favorite book when you were a kid?
My favorite book that I read several times was The Wolf Tower by Tanith Lee. Sorry. I comfort read that one quite a bit.
Cool. Yeah. And what is a book that you're just an evangelist for?
Oh, goodness gracious. Again, my friend's books. I'm just gonna
That's fine.
So Velocity Weapon by Megan O'Keefe. The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrew Stewart. Just start throwing all those out there.
Bone Shard Daughter, that's a good one. And let's see, what is a book that you've bought for the cover?
Oh, a book I have bought for the cover. Let's see. I feel like it's in here, but maybe it's not. Oh, it is. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab it.
Okay.
Even though I just said Tolkien's one of my favorite authors, I haven't actually read a Tolkien book in like forever, but I saw this one. I was like, oh, I must have.
That's a good cover. Yes. What is a book that you hid from your parents as a kid?
Oh, I actually didn't ever do that. My parents were very strict with TV and movies, but books were just like, it's a book, have. For some reason, they were completely different. There was nothing bad in a book because it was a book, I guess. That's how they felt.
What is a book that you'll just never part with?
Oh, that I will never part with. Oh, probably I have a couple versions of The Hobbit, but so The Hobbit is the one that like really made me fall in love with sci-fi and fantasy. I read a lot of actually mystery, like Nancy Drew before that when I was a kid. I was very into mysteries and I still love mysteries, but that's the one that really made me be like, oh, fantasy. So, and my dad gave me that in the 4th grade, so probably that.
Oh, that's awesome. And let's see, last one. What is a book you wish you could read again for the first time?
Oh. Actually, Velocity Weapon, because there is a surprise in there. I read a really early version. I got to read like one of the very first drafts. And
cool.
Yeah, having that experience again to have the aha moment would be great.
Cool. And let's see, what are you currently reading anything? Like, do you have any recommendations for us? I know you said Velocity Weapon, Bone Shard Daughter.
Yeah, a billion times. I recently read I'm Waiting for You and Other Stories.
Okay.
And it's a collection of like 4 different sci-fi stories, but they're 2 of them are intertwined and the other 2 are intertwined. And it's just really, it's by Yoon-Ha Lee. It's really, no, it's not by Yoon-Ha Lee. I'm sorry. I just totally said the wrong author. It's by Kim Bo Young, I think.
Yeah, that one's fairly new.
Yeah, I got an advanced copy.
Cool.
I'm just saying names over here. I think Kim Bo Young.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yoon-Ha Lee blurbed my first book, Numenon. So
awesome.
That's why I'm just throwing names out there. Also read Nine Fox Gambit. It's also very good.
Yoon-Ha Lee is local for us.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, in Louisiana for sure. I think Baton Rouge. Not New Orleans, but I think Baton Rouge. So what are you working on now? Like, we know that there's a book 2 coming to this one.
I am working on book 2.
You're working on book 2. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. And you have another book coming out in September. Are you working on anything else at the moment that we can know about?
That's pretty much it. I'm pretty focused on those things. I'm pitching some other things, but those are still in the very early stages. But yeah, so I got two more books in the 5 Penalty series that I need to write.
Cool. And I am letting someone know. Someone asked if there is an audiobook of Helm of Midnight, and there is. You can get it on, I'm going to put the link in the chat, libro.fm/tubbyandcoos. If you go there, you can actually get the audiobook, and we get a piece of that sale if you buy it from that link. But there is an audiobook. It is narrated by 3 different people, so each point of view has its own narrator, which I always like because you get the different voices. I haven't listened to it, but I've listened to like clips from it. And the readers sound really great. So if you are into audiobooks, it is available in audiobook. So we have a couple of questions from somebody watching. If you're interested in answering, somebody wants to know, do you play D&D? Because it sounds like you do.
I never got to as a kid growing up, but my writers group, we have a DM, and we, prior to this, got to play exactly once a year when we met. So I have played D&D all of like 3 times in my life, and I love it. And my writers group is probably like sick of me because I get very into it and I get very excited. So I am still very much a D&D baby, because I didn't get to play it as a kid growing up. But I sort of play it now, if 3 times counts.
It totally counts. I never played it as a kid either. I didn't start playing D&D until I was like a full-grown adult, or any RPGs until I was a full-grown adult. And I think it's really cool. I always wonder if writers do it, because I think it's cool for like character building and world building, and you're like storytelling through this thing. So I always say, like, if you want to write, it's a good exercise to play an RPG, I think. Kind of gets your brain juices going. How long did it take you to write Helm of Midnight from start to finish?
Oh, that is a very complicated question, because it started out as a short story, right? And that was in 2011. And then I started turning it into like a novelette when I decided to put Krona's point of view into it. And then the novelette was like, oh, there's so much more material here that's, it's the story's not really coming through in this novelette length. So then it got expanded and expanded and expanded. So trying to put a timeline on this thing from 2011 till now feels really weird.
So a decade.
A decade.
It's been going for that long.
It's been a while.
So what were some of your fantasy inspirations and mystery inspirations?
So definitely Mistborn in this one. It's very much an inspiration. I think the way I had actually started writing this before I started reading Victoria Schwab, but I realized as I was like fixing up the drafts that like there was a similar audience I wanted to go for with similar vibes. And then mystery, like I really like a lot of cozy mystery. So I know it's like it's so old, but still Agatha Christie was just very much. I will reread a lot of Agatha Christie a lot. So I will admit I'm not as up in the mystery genre as I am in the fantasy and sci-fi genres.
Yeah, Agatha Christie's a good one. I loved Mary Higgins Clark when I was a kid. And she's got like millions of books, and her books are the ones that I typically would get from the used bookstore. And so growing up, I read like every Mary Higgins Clark book. Couldn't much tell you a lot of other mystery authors. But yeah, I loved Mary Higgins Clark, loved Agatha Christie. I am the one with the dog. I'm so sorry. Somebody coming in like, who's got the dog? I hear them tippity tapping. I apologize. I have two dogs who are walking around. One of them keeps bumping into the table that I'm at. And so like, if you see it shifting, it's because my dog is bumping into it. And if you hear the tippity taps on the floor, it's definitely my dog. So sorry, this is sort of the thing we get when we do these things from home. So totally. Pets are real cute. If they come back, I'll show them to you. So let's see. How can people find you online if they want to know more about what you do?
They can go to lostetter.com or follow me on Twitter at Marina Lostetter. And once in a blue moon, I'm on Instagram at Marina J Lostetter.
Cool. So lostetter.com is the main place. And Twitter is the place to be, I think. Twitter is my favorite of the social medias. I'm not a young person, so I'm not all over TikTok like the young folk are.
Yeah, Twitter is definitely my go-to.
I am young enough that like Facebook is for the olds. So I'm on Twitter because I'm like an old millennial in that phase.
Right.
Of like Facebook's for the olds, but Twitter's for the youngs. But TikTok's for the youngs. So I'm gonna stick right here on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah. That's my proving grounds. I did see someone the other day say they can always tell a millennial because they use GIFs as reactions. And I was like, I feel attacked right now. What is wrong with using a GIF as a reaction to something? Nothing.
I do that all the time. I do that way too much.
Do you use GIFs as reactions?
Oh, so much. So much.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to apologize for that. If you know that I'm old because of it, that's fine. I'm not trying to be a teenager. Yeah, I've been there and done that and don't want to be one again. So I will take my GIFs. Thank you. And I will use them as I please. Yes. And I also feel like it's like, I'm not that old. Yeah, I always have this like reaction when I see things like that it's like, oh, how is that bad? Why is my Bitmoji really a bad thing?
Because it feels like we went from being treated like the children immediately into being old.
It's true. It's like we didn't have.
Don't we get a middle age? What's going on?
Yeah, we did not have a middle. It was like we're either, and still, I kind of feel like that still, that like either when people talk about, they're like, oh, millennials, like it's a bad young, like, oh, those are just young. And it's like, I'm 38 and I'm a millennial. They're not teenagers. But anyway, it's either like, oh, those millennials are like young and they don't know anything. Or it's like, oh, those old millennials that use GIFs as reactions. And it's like, come on, like I can be in between, right? Like, sure, I'm not super young anymore, but also I'm not super old either. So like,
Right.
give me my middle ground here. We all got to pass through it.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like those are all of the questions from the audience. Is there anything else that you want to plug before we wrap up?
I think that's it. I want to apologize for getting authors' names wrong and mixing them up. I am terrible with names, and obviously I should check before I speak.
That is not a problem. And so I'm going to pump up this book one more time. It is called The Helm of Midnight. Here it is. Here it is again. The Helm of Midnight.
Actually, I have one too. We can just cover the screen with
Here we go. The Helm of Midnight. Marina Lostetter is who I've been talking to. And this book is really good. I'm super excited to finish it. And I'm definitely going to like tweet you when I finish it because I'm sure I will have a reaction. And I just really want to know what's going on in this book. So I hope that, so I guess like without spoilers, do things like wrap up at the end or does it end on a major cliffhanger?
There is definitely, the main storyline is wrapped up.
Okay.
And we are being set up for a larger world mystery. So
cool. So that is the right way to do it. Thank you. I hate like super cliffhangers. That's like,
yeah, no, I don't do those things. I'm trying to tell a complete story.
Wrap things up, but like introduce a bigger thing. That's cool. That's what we do. That's what TV shows should do season to season. That's what books should do, book to book. Like, that's how I like it. Like, okay, wrap things up and then, oh, but it's bigger than we think. And then that makes you want to keep reading. So I'm glad that that's something that you do. So The Helm of Midnight, please purchase it. You can go to our website, tubbyandcoos.com, and click on place an order. And then just click on this book cover, Helm of Midnight, and buy it. It's very good. And if you come to the bookstore or call me, I'm really happy to talk to you about this book and tell you everything I think about it. But I think come for the magic system and the world and stay for the characters. That's what I say. It's worth coming for just the pure joy and uniqueness of the magic system and the world. I'm very much enjoying it. So thank you for writing this, Marina. Thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you for having me.
This has been awesome. And again, go and buy books, and we will see you next time.